What is your take on the Chinese spy balloon? They said that that there was a bunch of those that were happening while Trump was in office, but they didn't tell him about it because they were worried he was going to shoot him down, which I thought was fucking amazing.
That might, you know what? I'm not going to, at this stage of the game, I'm not going to say anything doesn't sound plausible. Everything sounds plausible nowadays.
Yeah.
So the Chinese regime continues, just like with the fucking Wuhan lab. The Chinese regime continues to just say it was a weather balloon, right? It got blown off course. It was a weather balloon. Well, it didn't get blown off course. It had a massive array of propellers. It had a rudder. It had solar panels to keep those propellers churning. They knew exactly what they were doing and where they were going. And, you know, it shows up over, whatever, Alaska on the end of January, whatever, and proceeds to travel across the country in a path that is clearly designed to, you know, collect intelligence from sensitive facilities, right? It flies over Montana.
What's in Montana?
A lot, but there's Malmstrom Air Force Base, and that's it's part of our where we put our land-based nukes.
What
right?
part of Montana is that in?
Yeah, the northern part. If you
close to Canada.
Up. Yeah, not well, a little further south than Canada, but it's like the top quarter, I guess. I think that's right. And it is 150 or so, silo-based nukes there. There it is.
So that's the base.
Yeah.
And so it was flying over that.
Flying over Malmstrom.
And so they were aware of it. The Air Force Base was aware of it.
They by the time, yeah. And look, it's not as if we're not, taking measures or countermeasures to prevent surveillance, because the Chinese have spy satellites, very technical, very, very advanced. So we know how to protect communications. We know how to protect, and we also know what's available, right? So satellite imagery is going to give you a fair amount of information anyway. So the question is, okay, well, why the hell was this thing, which was as tall as the Statue of Liberty, why was it floating around up there with an array of antennas, obviously there to collect? But it went over there. It went over Omaha, or near Omaha, where we've got U.S. Strategic Command and Offutt Air Force Base. And, the U.S. government, the military was like, well, we don't believe, after the fact, after we shot it down, they're like, we don't believe that it was collecting, And we took measures to prevent it from collecting. And not only that, we didn't shoot it down at the beginning because we were monitoring its capabilities and learning from that. Now, part of that is true, right? If you've got a target, you identify a target, unlike with law enforcement in the intelligence world, you let that run, right? Because you want to learn everything you can about that target. Who's there to support it? What is, what's that look like?
How do they know that? Can they figure out what it's transmitting? Can they tune into it?
Most of it's signals intelligence and capabilities. It's not really imagery that you're getting from it, although that's part of it. But so I have no doubt that, because everyone was saying, well, why wouldn't you just shoot the fucker down when it showed up over Alaska on the 28th of January, or when we became aware of it initially, and because we live in this highly partisan world, everybody was saying, well, because Biden's inept and they didn't know what they were doing and they let it float all the way across the states. So you can't discount the argument that says, well, part of it is we let it go because we were gathering intelligence ourselves from their capabilities. It's always interesting to know. It's just like when we, here I go disappearing down a rabbit hole, when we lost that platform, that air asset during the Abbottabad raid, right? And we had to leave it behind. And they destroyed, to the degree they could, everything that was in it of interest. But the platform itself was of interest, right? It was because the two things that are important nowadays are stealth and speed. And there was a stealth design involved there, and there's also material science that's interesting. So left it behind after they bagged bin Laden, literally, and then 3 days later, the Pakistanis had invited the Chinese to come in. And they were swarming all over that helicopter, right, gathering intelligence. So you always, if you have the opportunity to observe a target, I guess, like I said, then you do. And you can gain intelligence from. So I'm not one of those people who said, I should have shot it down immediately, because I don't know what they were getting from it. But I do know that the purpose of the balloon was to gather intelligence on us, on our sensitive facilities to some degree. So anyway, and then they sent all the remains after they recovered them off the coast of South Carolina to wherever, Quantico. And that was kind of the last we ever heard of it, right? Because we've all got attention deficit disorder. Nobody wants to, think, okay, what did we learn? Can we do a hot wash on it and figure out? And to what degree can you tell the public what the hell was going on, right? Because honestly, I don't know that we ever would have learned about it if it hadn't been so large and, members of the public hadn't seen it or spotted it. So
what altitude was it hovering around at?
It went, it cut a path through a couple of other bases, Minot and I forget where else it was to the south of there, but the fact that it hovered over a period of time over Malmstrom, right, is really all you need to know, right? Because if it's a weather balloon, so it doesn't. I guess one point being, we never really pushed the Chinese regime under Xi for anything, right? We haven't forced the hand on the pandemic, and we're going to have another pandemic. So it would be nice to know what the fuck actually happened, right? Not to disappear down.
Why do you think we're going to have another pandemic? Everybody keeps saying that.
Yeah, well, because
it's very disconcerting. We haven't had one in 100 years, not a legitimate one.
Well, not to toot my own horn, which I guess that would be an interesting thing if you could do that, but. It was a few years back when we were talking, and I said, we'll have the next big thing will be a pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And someone had pointed that out to me. I'd forgotten about it, but they sent it to me. And so my point back then and the point now is that it's bound to happen, right? We're an increasingly shrinking globe. There's more people. We're in contact. We're, with everything that goes on, right? Whether it's in a natural based or just what we're doing in biotech and pharma, it's bound to happen. And so I guess you'd think that if we were serious-minded, we would demand answers. And we wouldn't just allow the Xi regime to just shrug it off constantly, right? I mean, that there would be a massive debrief on this whole situation if it happened in the U.S. or the U.K. or, started in Australia or wherever, right? The rest of the world wouldn't let it go. But there's something about it. We never push the Chinese regime to the degree that we need to get an answer. And so the point being, it's the same with the damn balloon.
Is it because we don't think we'll ever get an answer and it's kind of a waste of time? Because it's not like they're transparent.
Yeah.
They would just not tell us the truth.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.